We're live!
We're live together.
I'm so excited right now. We are live for teacher. We have multiple reasons. For Teacher Appreciation Week, we kind of just want to hang out and talk and catch up and just talk about things. And we're going to talk a little grading and evaluation because you're kind of like the queen of that. And I just like sitting back and listening to you talk. So I kicked Dave off the screen and no, I'm just kidding. Don't worry, he'll be back, people. Don't get too upset. Stay with us. I am here with the one and only incredible Katelynn, and we are going to bring so much awesomeness to this screen. We will be right back.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey, how's it going? We've already got so many people here with us. We've got Ray. Ray, you let us on camera together, so sorry.
Watch out.
I know. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're excited. I agree with Joe. Joe, I'm so excited to be live with Katelynn. This is literally just the highlight of my day. Like, is there anything better than going live with Katelynn Giordano? Because I really don't think there is. So.
Going live with Megan Deegan. What?
Aw, love it. Seriously, we have not been live together in so long. We haven't. It's been too long.
It's been a hot minute.
I know, it really has been. Clearly, last time they were like more. Megan is here, loving it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk a lot of things. Again, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so we're going to talk about that. We're just going to kind of catch up and see how we're both doing, and then we're going to like put a quarter in Katelynn and just let her go when it comes to grading and evaluation, because let's be honest, we have not heard enough of it yet. And I'm not being sarcastic. We really, truly haven't. There's like never enough. We've got Megan here. Ray is jealous. Oh, I miss you too, Ray. I miss like, just add like a third box and get Ray in on this. It'd be great.
Yeah. Jump on in.
No, Minnie is here. We got a lot of ambassadors in the house right now. Love it. All right, Katelynn, if this is the first time that people are connecting with you, which I don't know how it could be. I really don't, because, you know, you've just had this like little teeny tiny thing going on the last few weeks. You know, maybe they've heard of it. But if this is their first time connecting with you or seeing you and hearing from you, tell us a little bit, you know, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and why you're so incredibly awesome.
Well, hi, everyone. If you don't know me yet, I am Katelynn Giordano, otherwise known as the better half or the other half of the Focus on the Focus series with Dave Schmittou, where we talk all things grading and assessment because that is my passion. I am a 6th grade English and history teacher in the suburbs of Chicago, and I am also the director of curriculum and instruction for the Teach Better team. So lots of different things going on, but you know, all good stuff.
All good stuff. I love all of it. We've got Mel here and Maggie here. And in case you don't know me, I am Megan Deegan. I am a 7th grade math teacher currently in Illinois, but soon that's about to change. And I am the ambassador program coordinator with the Teach Better team and loving on all of the ambassadors that are here. Because Carly's here and Amanda's here. So excited. Shout out to Amanda. She has been killing it with the Instagram takeover. If you are not following, you need to go follow the Teach Better team on Instagram. We have a different ambassador doing an Instagram takeover every single day this week. And it started with Amanda. And ladies and gentlemen, she set the bar real high. So you need to go check that out if you haven't yet.
The stories today were awesome. Amanda, you rock. And hearing your happy voice all day today just made me happy.
It totally does. I love it. I was like, this is just like the best thing ever. Nikki is here, loving it. So before we jump in, how are you? How is everything going?
Well, it's Appreciation Week for us. So great. Life is good. You know, we've got Chickpea running around. She'll probably run in the shot at some point, you know, doing her thing. Just, you know, doing the teaching thing, ready for the end of the year. We've only got like 3.5 weeks left now, which feels kind of crazy. After this whirlwind year, having kids back in my classroom now has been so nice. Like, I don't think starting this year off remotely and having so much remote instruction happen both this year and to end last year, I don't think it ever really registered with me and with other people too that I've spoken with how hard, how difficult that was for us. Because now that kids are back in the building, I feel like I'm just realizing and seeing how much, not easier, but how much simpler it is to like connect with them and help them and teach and instruct and, you know, differentiate. Like all of those things just come so much more naturally when you have them with you. And so that's been kind of like a moment that I've had over the past couple of weeks having most of my kids back. It's been like, okay, wow, that was a lot harder than I think it was in the moment. I think we're all just kind of like trying to muddle through it.
I completely agree with you. It is, although I do think that it was successful for what it was.
Oh yeah.
They were all remote. I 100% agree. It is so much easier I found, you know, the hardest thing right now for me is because I've got about half in person and half on Zoom. Today, it was the funniest thing. They were doing an activity. It was on Excel. It had 2 tabs. They were all doing the first tab and none of them were doing the second tab. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a tab at the bottom of your screen. And so I shared I'll just share my screen and show you. Well, then it didn't load when I shared my screen. I was like, all right, well, that was okay. And so in-person kids, I was like, here you go. I can like point it out to you. And the Zoom kids, luckily we have GoGuardian so I can see their screens. So I'm like yelling, I'm like, down a little. Nope, a little bit to the left. Up a little bit. And I was like, oh man, this is just one of those things. It's easier in person. But
yeah,
you know, we make it work, but it is so much easier to have them in front of us. And I don't know, just so much nicer. I'm used to Zoom now, but you know,
which is so weird. Like it's so weird to be used to that and to be used to teaching that way. Like starting a Zoom and then also like welcoming kids into my classroom is like the routine now. And it's so weird to have that be your routine. I was like, okay, I feel like I remember when I could just stand outside my room and welcome children in and not have to go back to my computer to make sure the Zoom was started and the screen was shared and I was letting kids in.
I don't know what I'm going to do when I only have to hold the door open and greet my kids anymore. I don't know what that's going to feel like. Today I taught like the first 10 minutes of my class while I was muted on Zoom. Rookie mistake. My Zoom kids were like, you're muted. I was like, great, children. You waited 8 minutes to tell me this. Like, thank you. None of you thought it was weird and then I was like, oh, you can't see my mouth moving because I have a mask on. I just thought I was walking around, not talking about anything important. It's fine.
Okay, so I think one of the best things though was that my kids pulled the most perfect April Fool's joke on me. The kids on Zoom did it. It wasn't my in-person kids. So they were on Zoom and I was like going through everything, like delivering the lesson, you know, all that good stuff. And one of my kids unmuted and was like, we can't hear you. And then like another kid was like, yeah, like, are you muted? And I was like, I'm not muted. Like, what is going on? And I started like clicking a bunch of things and they're like, we still can't hear you. Like, we don't know what's going on. And I'm like, trying to figure it out. Like, okay, what do I do? Like, what's going on? Something must be wrong with my microphone. And then all of a sudden, one of the kids goes, I can hear her. And I was like, you're April Fool's me. It was so good. Like the perfect April Fool's joke.
That's amazing. That like they get so much credit for that because that is. I would be the same way. I'd be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? I'd be like texting my tech guy. I'd be like, can you come fix this? They can't hear me. I'm in a panic. What do I do?
That's right. I was like,
come back in.
Yes. I was about ready to like shut down the Zoom and be like, okay, we're going to just start it over. Like, see what's going on. It was perfect. Like, way to make the most of it, kiddos. Super good job.
Seriously. Good to know they can like keep a sense of humor throughout all of this. And Becky this is the first week when she hasn't. I am so jealous, Becky. You haven't had to set up your Google Meet. I don't know what I would be like, I'm missing something. If I'm not setting up my Zoom, I'd be like, oh no, what am I doing? What am I doing?
It's gonna be a weird feeling.
It is. God, we have so many more people joining us. Debbie's here. Candace is here. Yusuf is here. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, everyone. We also, I want to go back. Mel let us know that she stalked us on Twitter. If you haven't stalked us yet, go stalk us on Twitter. That's why it's here. find us, follow us. You know, Katelynn shares really great things. Sometimes I do too, but really just Katelynn really just
Most
shares.
of the stuff I share is kind of silly lately. So
That's okay. Mike
keeping it light.
here. I like Candace's idea. You're going to have to come up with a plan to get them back.
Okay, yes. I will
my
not
gosh.
lie. That's an amazing idea. I really love that. I did Rickroll all of them as my April Fool's joke to them. Like I Rickrolled all of them and it was phenomenal. But I like that idea better. So I think I'm totally going to just like go for it.
That is awesome. Mike's calling himself a stalker. Mike, it's fine. We went live together. You're like not a stalker. It's just, you're one of the cool kids. So.
Oh yeah, you're in the cool crew.
You are. You are. It's Teacher Appreciation Week and we get to kick it off, which is super exciting because it's been, like you said, it has been a year. And I don't care whether you've started remote and you're still remote, whether you started in person, you're still in person, or whether you've had 5 different plans. It has been a year. And sometimes I started fully remote and I've had about 3 or 4 different changes. Now we're, half and half, but sometimes I look back and I'm like, that feels like a whole lifetime ago where we were all remote and we were all at home and all learning how to do Zoom and doing this. So it has been a challenging year, but I will say there are so many things that like I have learned either about myself or even just things that I didn't think I could do that I've made work. So it's been a challenging year, but the challenges have brought some good things too, not all negative. So teachers,
definitely,
you deserve all the appreciation all the time, but like especially this week.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was just talking to somebody about this, and I feel like it's one of those things where Teacher Appreciation Week is phenomenal. And I love that we get this week where there's so much celebration and there's so much focus placed on it. And I think that it's important to, as the teachers, as the people being appreciated, that we take a few minutes and appreciate ourselves and really reflect on not just like the negatives, like Megan, you just said, but also every single thing that you've accomplished this year. Even if the accomplishment was just getting through it, you guys, that's a huge accomplishment. We have been through the ringer. Like a year ago, people were talking about how we deserve millions of dollars, which, like, yes, we do. But then it's been like whiplash since then. And there's been so much change, so much upheaval, so much pain, heartache, so much that has happened that has been so overwhelming. But there's also been so many positives that have come out of it. And on top of that, I feel like a lot of us need to take a minute and just think about everything that we've overcome and accomplished. Because it's like we've been talking about, when you really sit back and think about everything that you've done, everything that you've learned, the adjustments that you've made, the things that have become part of your new routine, there's so much there. And we deserve that appreciation, not just from other people, but from ourselves too. So, like, treat yourself, take a minute, reflect on that, but then go a step further. Like, get yourself some ice cream, go get yourself something that you've been wanting. Take 5 minutes and just be by yourself and do something for you. Like, that is, I feel like, so important this week, all weeks, but this week especially. One of the things too that I feel like Teacher Appreciation Week brings up is this idea of talking about our time and being protective of our time and our energy and taking that time to like recharge ourselves. And I know we talk a lot about self-care on the team, and we really do try to make that an important piece of what we do, which I love about being on the team. But that's something I really just feel like this week especially needs reiterating. We need to be protective of our time. Whatever that looks like for you, like I know there's so many people out there that do so many things. And like all of you moms out there and dads out there who also teach, like, I don't know how y'all do it because I think I would lose my mind. I know I would lose my mind. But I feel like we just need to take that minute and be protective of our time and figure out what that looks like for us and make sure that we really are honoring that space that we all need and that room that we all need to reflect and grow and just be sometimes.
I love it. I agree with Mike. He said, preach it. Seriously, agree. Brienne's here saying hi. And I love that you said that. We do need to appreciate ourselves, and we need to be proud of ourselves. Like, look at how far you've come, and look at where you probably were at in August, not knowing what this was going to look like and not knowing how you were going to do. And you be proud of yourself. It is May. You have made it to May. And you know what? Your kids have learned. Your kids are loved, and your kids have learned. And to me, if my kids are loved and they are learning, that is literally all that I can ask for. And that's all that I need. Like, be proud of yourself, because you have done so much this year. And I agree. Go take some time, take as much time as you want, and do something for you to appreciate yourself. And Mel, it might just be a US thing. I'm guessing it is. But you know what, Mel? We're just going to make it an everywhere thing. This is Teacher Appreciation Week now for you.
Welcome to the team. Welcome to the family.
Yeah, it's Teach Better Teams. I'm making that call. This is Teacher Appreciation Week for absolutely everyone. Everyone watching, everyone who's part of the family, everyone who's a teacher. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. Go appreciate yourself.
Maggie, I am with you on that. Coffee all day long, whenever you want it. That's all you, man.
It is. And Nikki, I agree with Katelynn. I mean, Katelynn and I have 4-legged children, and they're a lot easier to handle than actual children. Although Andrea and I had, if those of you watching know Baby Luke, we had this conversation yesterday about how Baby Luke is really sometimes not much different than what it takes to care for an animal. And I'm sure she'll appreciate that one. But seriously, those of you with children, I don't know how you do it.
You deserve double appreciation, triple, 1,000 times.
Coffee and donuts. That sounds delicious. That might be what tomorrow is for. Tomorrow might be coffee and donuts.
Love that journey for you. Definitely do that.
Basically, because I'm pretty sure that's Brienne told me to. So I'm going to say, well, Brienne told me to. Brienne told me I needed coffee and donuts. I don't know about I'm not a big coffee person, but
I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
I mean, I do like Starbucks, but I feel like what I get is not really coffee. So
if it's from Starbucks, it's coffee. It counts. Don't even worry about it.
Oh, that's sweet. Flowers for Teacher Appreciation Day. That's so sweet.
That's so sweet. Happy Teacher Appreciation Day to you.
Seriously, that's awesome. I love it. Tell us what is going on. So this is part of actually what Amanda talked about in her stories. And I'm just kind of curious. What are some things that maybe your district is doing or your school is doing if they do anything for Teacher Appreciation Week? I know it might look a little different. I know within our district, it's usually a lot of food sometimes. So I know that has kind of had to change. We're still going to kind of do it, but it's just going to look a little different. But yeah, if you're watching us, maybe what are some things that your district is doing, or what are some things you're doing to appreciate yourself? Or if your kids said any cute things, of course, include that, because those are like my favorite.
Yes, but I definitely want to hear from everybody in the chat. What are you doing to appreciate you? That's what I need to know, because that's so, so important. You have to take a moment and appreciate yourself.
I love this. I love this so much. Maggie, I'm not going to lie. I had to read this twice. So Maggie teaches, this is the best thing ever. Maggie teaches her, and she keeps dropping hints to her husband about appreciating her teachers. So Maggie, I've got my fingers crossed for you, because that's awesome. And Maggie, we need to talk more about you teaching your daughter. I'm very interested in how that goes.
Okay, so funny story about something super similar. So a couple years ago, it was longer ago than that. I think I was in my second year teaching. And I thought I was so excited for Teacher Appreciation Week. The first year went so well. I called my mom and I was like, oh my God, Mom, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget. And she was like, what do you mean don't forget? And I was like, well, I'm just curious how you'll be appreciating me this year. And she was like, what? And I was like, I'm a teacher. How will you be appreciating me? It was so obnoxious, but I thought it was hilarious at the time.
That's amazing. We all just need to be a little bit more like Katelynn. Just text someone and be like, how are you going to appreciate me this week? It's Teacher Appreciation Week. FYI, just so you know. If you need
just own it.
Just, how are you going to appreciate me? Oh, I like that. Have food every day and a drawing for prizes every afternoon. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Mike is going to be slowing down. I love that. You have to intentionally, I think, and I going back to when Katelynn talked about this, it's so true. Like I have to intentionally be like, no, I'm gonna go do this, or I'm gonna slow down and I'm gonna do this. It's hard to take time for ourselves, and it's hard to, leave work if things aren't done and things like that. But I think that this year has showed us you guys slow down sometimes. It's gonna be okay. Tomorrow is going to be fine. No matter what happens, it will all work out and it will be okay. It's okay to, leave at 3:00 or, whenever your day ends sometimes. It's okay to leave your work at work sometimes. It's okay.
I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons that I have learned. Like most of you know, I'm a huge planner. I like to plan ahead. I like to get my lessons all prepped. I was the teacher who would plan out a whole unit at once and sit down and like knock it out. And obviously, COVID has made that impossible. Like, that was not something that you could do. You could not plan that far in advance because we did not know what anything was going to be like. So, I have learned that planning a week at a time, sometimes even a day at a time, will be okay. Like, I will not lose my mind. And I've actually learned that it's a lot better this way. Planning like a week out, way better than a whole unit. Because if something gets thrown off, guess what? I don't have to like move everything. I just have to move a few things around. It's been one of the most important lessons that I've learned for myself is it's okay to not have an entire unit planned. Like you're cool.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. It's fine. It's really less work in the long run, so it's a positive. It's like, okay. Exactly. It's good. I love this from Megan that her birthday always falls on National Teacher Appreciation Day, so she does a super easy lesson for her birthday. Thank you notes to teachers. Spread the love and be kind to me. I do love that. I was actually just telling my kids today. I'm a student council co-sponsor, and we're having all the kids. They brought this up, but we're having all the kids send an email to all the teachers in the building. And I told them, I was like, I just want you to know how much an email, even if it's just you saying Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, well, I appreciate you. Like, you don't know how much that means to your teachers any year, but especially this year. It means so much. It really does.
It really does. That's so sweet.
Princess coloring page. Wait a minute, Candace, your kids are like in high school, aren't they? At first I was like, oh, that's so sweet, like little kids. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that might even be cuter because they're like older kids, I'm pretty sure, which is like 10 times sweeter.
That's so adorable.
Oh no, Danielle. Planned everything over the summer and then completely forgot and created a better plan. Hey, you know what? It was a better plan. So that's totally okay. Sometimes those are the best plans.
They are.
Things on the fly, and sometimes that is truly just the best.
It's a little more responsive that way, I've learned too. You can kind of tailor things a little bit more to like what happened the day before or what happened most recently. Like you're able to kind of adjust. Candace, that makes it like 1,000 times better. Oh my God.
It really does, Candace. It really does. That is so much better that it came from like a high school student. That is awesome.
Big fan.
All right. I feel like, so our Teacher Appreciation Day series, we are starting out and we're going to talk about grading and evaluating and all that. So I feel like we should probably transition before someone figures out how to like cut us live or something like that for not talking about what we're supposed to talk about. I'm going to pause before we really jump into this. And I want you to like talk just a little about, because you've kind of had this thing going on for a few weeks with your other half, and it's been pretty amazing. It's called Focus on the Focus, in case you haven't seen it. And I'm so sad because the last Focus on the Focus is happening next Wednesday. So you've already had 4. This is going to be the 5th one. And I'm super excited for this one because it's going to be a Q&A format. And you're bringing in some guests, which is just so exciting because I may or may not have already seen who you're bringing in. So I'm excited. Tell us just like a little bit about what it is and what you've spent the last 4 weeks kind of chatting through.
Yeah, so Dave Schmittou, my other half, and I are both incredibly passionate about all things grading, assessment, evaluation, feedback, all that good stuff. And we just really love to talk about it. So that's kind of where Focus on the Focus came from, was Dave and I were like, hey, we really want to have a platform to be able to talk about these things and really kind of push the conversation and talk, like kind of model almost in a way for other people how to have some of these conversations. So a lot of our focus has been not just on grading and what it could be, what it should be, but also what to do in the face of, okay, I want to make these changes, but how? Or I want to make these changes, but this thing is in my way. Or anything that you might experience that isn't quite an obstacle, or maybe is an obstacle, but just kind of gets in the way of you getting to where you want to be. So one of the things that we're both, again, very passionate about is the idea that there isn't any off limits topic. There are no taboo topics in education, but grading and feedback and assessment tend to be topics that we avoid in conversation with other educators unless they're coming down from on high as some kind of initiative we have to get on board with. And that's something that both Dave and I really take issue with, because the change, when it comes to any kind of change that we want to make, really needs to start with us, the practitioners, and frankly, the professionals who are in there doing this work every single day. There's a lot out there on the theory and on the philosophy and on how you could do this, even down to like, these are ways that you could implement this, and here are some of the common things you could do to overcome what might be in your way. But we're the ones that are going to do it. So the actual change should probably start with us. And having those conversations is the way that you get that to happen. It's the way that you help other people start shifting their thinking. So Focus on the Focus has been a lot of that. You hear us say, but Dave, but Katelynn, all the time, because we're trying to be that person or those people who are going to push back, who are going to be that, oh, but there's this obstacle in the way. What do I do now? And it's just been a really powerful and also like super fun series. Dave and I are also incredibly sad that it's going to be over. I'm absolutely devastated. I'm not going to get to go live with Dave every single week. So really trying to figure out how to make that happen. Ray, if you're still here, just every just would really like for that to continue. But it's just been really, it's been cool to have that kind of conversation. And like, one of my favorite things is the way that we put each other on the spot almost, because you can't plan for every single conversation you're going to have. And sometimes people will bring things up that are uncomfortable or hard to answer, or kind of put you in the spot where you're like, hold on. So I love that we do that to each other, because it is like a real conversation then in that way. One of the things, like, I don't know if we've shared this with anybody, but we don't really like say what we're gonna do or what we're going to question before we go live. We have an idea of like what we want to cover, but Dave doesn't tell me like, okay, here's the tough questions I'm going to give to you. Like, he poses them to me and I do the same to him in the moment, real, like live in front of you, because that's how it will look in real life. And so it's just this idea that you may not always have the right answers, but you can at least kind of articulate what you believe and what has worked for you and what your experience has been.
I don't even know where to start. I just love everything about that. But I do love a couple things. I love that you say there's no taboo topics. There really shouldn't be. In a world where we have districts that do different things. We have people that do different things. You have people that have different ideas. And if everyone is constantly trying to do what's best for the kids and make things better for the kids, then there shouldn't be any topics off limit. It doesn't mean you're going to agree on everything, and it doesn't mean that you have to, but you shouldn't be afraid to bring things up and have the conversations. And I love that you and Dave don't always know the questions that are going to be asked beforehand, because I agree. I think that so often when these questions come up, a lot of times it is when you're on the spot. And I don't think that anybody needs to be afraid to answer them and be honest. And it's okay not to have the right answer. And it is okay not to know what the right answer is. And I think that is what I love. You and Dave have created a safe space to have the conversation, but you've not only created it, you've demonstrated how the two of you have the conversation, because the two of you don't agree on everything all the time. And that's another thing that I love, is that we get to see two perspectives, but you also get to see people that disagree. And like, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't like each other. It doesn't mean that you don't respect each other. It just means that you have differences of opinions. And we're all allowed to do that, because everybody's classroom looks different. But you have to be open to having that conversation and hearing someone out. And yeah, sometimes you may not like what they say, and that's okay. But sometimes there are pieces and there are things that you can take away from people to make your classroom better and to make your district better. So I think that that's huge. I love that you have created this safe space to have the conversation. And because it is such an important conversation that does not happen enough. And I 100% understand anybody that is maybe hesitant to have the conversation. I understand that. I think that we all do. But I think that you're right. The change does have to start with us, because there is not a single person that knows my classroom and my students better than me in my classroom. And so if I'm not advocating for what's best for my kids, then like, who is? Because I'm the one that is in direct contact with them all the time and knows what they need. I think that is, I just love that piece. And I love that you guys have created that, because it's been awesome to watch. I have learned so much. Let's be honest. I just want to be more like you and Dave, seriously, because why not? It's just, but really, like, I literally have listened, and we're going to get into this in a minute. But like, it's not a bad thing, but like, I love listening to you talk about your classroom, because I'm like, how could I be more like Katelynn in my classroom? More of what Katelynn does in my classroom. I love it. And that's why I'm super excited about this conversation, because you and I do not do the same things in our classroom in terms of grading. And I will be the first one to admit that I am nowhere near where I want to be in that aspect, but I am so much better than where I was. And so I have no problem, ladies and gentlemen. I will admit everything on here that I have done that Katelynn's probably going to be like, I can never speak to you again after this.
No.
But you don't do it anymore. So that's like the important part here. That's the important part. Baby Luke is joining. We can officially start now.
Yay. Hi, Baby Luke.
We can officially start. So, Katelynn, tell us a little bit, give us a little background for those people that may not know. What does that look like in your classroom? Because again, I know it's very different than, I would venture to say, a lot of people. But what does that look like?
So I feel like for me, it's kind of I've kind of gone on an interesting journey with grading. I started by making really small changes that I would implement into my classroom. Something as simple as putting learning targets on every assignment so students could see how they progress. Creating a proficiency scale that worked within the points system so that I could still be grading them on their proficiency at a given skill, but operate within that traditional points and percentages style gradebook that I was expected to adhere to. I have also run a totally gradeless classroom where every single thing I put into my online gradebook was weighted at nothing, and I was reporting, but it wasn't creating a grade until I was able to have conferences, sit down with every single one of my students and go through a portfolio of their work from that given grading period and talk to them about what they had accomplished, what they had learned, and what grade they thought they should get. I will say that was by far my favorite structure that I have literally ever implemented in my classroom. It took years to get to that point, and there was a lot of things that were done along the way that allowed me to get to that point. And I was also with an incredibly innovative and supportive principal in my building who was like, yeah, if you want to try this and you have research to prove that it's a good thing to try, you can try it. Since then, I have moved to a different district. We moved and had a bunch of changes go on. So my current classroom right now actually is more of a model with one of the ways that I used to do things. So I'm now working back within that traditional points, percentages, and grading scale that most of us are familiar with, that most of us also like went through as students ourselves. So I've kind of gone back and reworked some of the ways that I got to the point where I used to be at. So I've reworked that process and that journey that I've gone on. So it was even more aligned with my philosophy. One of the things I feel like I hear people say a lot, and I can completely empathize with you, is, okay, I want to do this. Okay, my philosophy, I agree with you. Okay, like, yes, I understand that the grading system I'm using isn't working, but I am stuck in this grading system. I don't get to pick how we do this. I don't get to decide that I'm going to weight my grade book at 0. I have to have certain grades in my grade book. I have to do this. First off, I get it. I'm with you 100%. I can empathize with you all day because that is my scenario right now. And it has taken not only a lot of creativity on my end to make a grading system that maybe isn't completely 1000% aligned with my values, with what I want it to be, but it does represent my philosophy in a way that makes me feel comfortable using it. And that's what I would say. You need to know your philosophy. You need to develop it over time. Don't just like listen to me and be like, oh yeah, my philosophy is her philosophy. Like, do some research, and I've got a whole Google Drive full of stuff. If you want it, I will share it with you. It's all the articles that I read, that I cite, that I love, that I refer to frequently. I'm happy to share with anybody that wants it. But I would challenge everybody that is like, yes, I really do want to do something within my system, within the constraints that I have, to develop a philosophy that's really strong. Because then even if you cannot get all the way to that place, you can at least implement something that is in line with your philosophy enough that you feel comfortable using it. And then you can start some of those conversations about how to get to where you want to be. Because I will be very honest with you, holding a gradeless classroom, having a gradeless classroom, doing grading conferences with my students never would have happened if I hadn't had some tough conversations, not just with my admin. I had to talk to the Board of Education about why I wasn't going to have grades in my grade book. I had to communicate with families. But most importantly, I had to communicate with my kids and explain to them why it was going to look different and how that would benefit them, how they would be able to understand what we were doing. So you need to have that philosophy really down pat. You need to have it developed. You need to know what you want your grading to look like, what you want it to be, how you want to utilize your assessments before you can really start to make those changes and take those steps.
I love that, and I completely agree. And don't worry, I took a screenshot of this email address for you, so I'll send it to you later.
Thanks.
Sure, you got that. I think that is so important. Is and I love that you shared too that you are not, you're not in a gradeless classroom right now because of just where you're at and what that structure is. So I think that I absolutely, love that, like, this, anybody can do, I don't want to say anything that they want, but within reason, you can get creative. But before you can do any of that, like you said, you have to know your philosophy. You have to know what you think grades are. If you talk to everybody you work with, I can almost guarantee that you get a different answer from everyone. Everybody feels a different way about grades. And so before you can really make any changes, you have to understand how you feel about grading, what you are trying to accomplish with your grades, to then be able to build something that's going to accomplish that. It's like anything that we do in our classroom. I can't just start building a unit when I haven't really thought through like what I'm trying to actually teach and what standards and what objectives I'm trying, like I want my kids to understand. You have to know that. And that's hard. And it takes a long time to figure out. Nikki stopped and got some ice cream because, see, Nikki, proud of you. You stopped and you did something for you.
You go, girl.
I'm not going to lie, I got some ice cream. That's happening later. Okay.
Well, and one of the things you said too, Megan, that I think is really important to point out is I know we've got school leadership here. I know we've got some administrators with us. Everybody does have a different view of grading. That is a valid statement. And it's one of the biggest issues to making true change at a district level, at a school like building level. You have to be able to have an open conversation with your staff, and you have to get everyone on the same page, meaning honor what people are saying to you, how they feel about it, what their apprehensions are, what they believe, and then provide resources that can help people gain a better understanding and start to develop that philosophy. Make it a shared philosophy, and not a shared philosophy that you're like, hi, I'm in charge, so here you go. But none of you would do that because you're awesome. Make it truly shared, a philosophy on grading and assessment that's built together, that's built collaboratively, because one, by like, that's how people are going to be like, yep, we believe that too, because we co-created it. But also it's going to allow everybody to start from a common goal and with common ground. And that is a huge piece of making sure that something is successful, especially something as hot button as grading.
I think that I love that. I couldn't have said that more perfectly. I mean, how many times do we get things? And I'll be honest, if you show me something and I had nothing to do with it, I'm not gonna maybe read it as much as I probably should sometimes. But if I put something into that, that's a very different story. I'm now taking ownership of building something or putting, having my perspective brought into it and having that conversation. So I think that is huge. That is a huge piece. I agree. Kids should be able to reason through the grading based on their short-term and long-term goals. And I think that it's so important to building, you've said this a lot, but building your philosophy is going to take you time. It is not something you're just going to listen to Katelynn talk about and be like, yep, that's it. I mean, yes, I love everything that Katelynn says, but I also have to make it work for me, and I have to figure out certain pieces that work for me. And trust me, it has taken a million mistakes to get to where I am now. And I look back and I just cringe. Like, I can't believe I ever did that. But I learned. Here's the thing. My kids were still learning, and my kids were still loved way back when. They were. Yeah. They really were. Their grades were just not what they should have been. They were not reflective of what they should have been reflecting. And when you can have those conversations and you learn from that, and I have sat and listened to, and sometimes I can be super stubborn. I'm like, no, that's not going to work in my classroom. But the more I've listened to the conversations and the more I've had the conversations, the more I have grown, and I've been able to take bits and pieces and be like, nope, that's got to go. That is not. And now, I mean, again, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm at a point, the only thing that goes into my grade book are assessments. That is it. If it is not an assessment, it doesn't. And I do get this question a lot, at least from like teachers that I like work with or know. And everybody always asks, well, do you ever have problems with the kids like doing the work that leads to that? And I'm like, no. That's just the expectation we set at the beginning. But my kids also understand that they do the work to make the mistakes, to learn, to then master to show me what they've mastered. Like, they understand that. Now, if I just like handed kids stuff and was like, hey, we're going to do this today, and I'm not grading any of it, but it is a shift. And like, I think that is so important, because that was something that I struggled with, is whatever shift you make in your grading is probably not going to be easy. It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. And not just, I mean, like you said, you talk to the Board of Education. It's going to be, you have to communicate. You have to communicate with your school leaders, Board of Education, parents, but you have to communicate with your students. They are like the most important piece to the puzzle. This is and this is what affects them. You have to have that conversation. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I am not sitting here saying that every single child that I teach does every single assignment for me. No, if that is you, please come find me and like tell me your magic, because that's not what happens. But my kids do the work because they want to learn, and they want to show me what they've mastered, and they want to, and that is the important part, is like, we had that conversation. I tell them on the first day, this class is going to look nothing like any of your other classes ever had. I need you to be open-minded, and I need you to stick with me for a bit, because it's not going to be easy. And I almost quit and threw it all away after, the first month, the first time I tried this. But the more you stick with what you're doing and make those changes and communicate them to the stakeholders and the important people, because a lot of times I think we get a lot of pushback when people don't understand. Your pushback comes from not understanding, and you can't expect someone to understand if you're not communicating it. And that's fair. So you just have to be willing to have the conversations. They're not easy. They're not easy at all. And yeah, Andrea does that too. Assessments only put in assessments. Again, I'm still in a very traditional, if I don't put grades in every so often, I get the like, so are you going to put grades in anytime soon? And I'm like, yeah, next time I take an assessment. They're on their little self-paced learning track. They get to it when they get to it. Like it'll go in.
They'll get there.
Yeah, they haven't showed me what they've learned yet. We're taking a little bit longer on this concept. It's fine.
Well, and I feel like too, it allows you to communicate like you just did. When they're ready to show me what they've learned, that's when I'll put a grade in. And that communication piece right there was developed because you developed your philosophy. You want to assess kids not just when they're ready to demonstrate their mastery, but that is how you use your assessments. It's how to determine where your students are on their journey through that particular concept. That's how you use them. That's the philosophy you've developed. So it's now not only allowed you to get to that point and create the system that works for you, but it also allows you to continuously communicate it to the people that are involved. It allows you to respond to those questions in a way that's like, okay, that makes sense to me because it makes sense to you, the person doing it. And so my thing too, I tell people all the time, this is it. I will share all of my resources with you no matter what. I will give you everything I've ever done with grading. But the best system to use is the one that works for you and your kids. My system and the way that my classroom ran, the way that I did grading, the way that I do grading now may not be the best system for you and your kids. You may take what I've given you and rehash it, rework it, tweak it. You may throw it out completely and find something that's more in line with your philosophy and your students' needs. Whatever that might look like, as long as you are adhering to the notion that grades are communication and assessments are action items, you are doing something right. You are doing something that is beneficial to your students, and you are working towards that idea of, I'm going to make this better. I'm going to do this in a more efficient way and in a more clear way for the kids in my classroom, the parents that I serve, the families that I see. That's a good thing.
I love that. And we have a really good question, which, can you guys share how you document the conferences and feedback? I have parents that would like more evidence in communication, and I think that's with communication with students. So more evidence of communication with students. So how do you, and I'm interested in this too, especially when you talk about like grade lists, but even in general, when you're not, how do you document your conferences and your feedback?
Yeah, okay. So the grading conference is something that happens once per grading period, and it isn't how the entire grade for my class was determined. The entire grade for my class was based on that conversation. Now, that conversation also included a portfolio that students put together that I would give them the list of the standards that we had covered in a quarter, and the kids would have to bring me evidence of their mastery on each of those standards. They could pull from any assignment, any assessment that we had already done, or they could show me in a way that worked for them. So occasionally I would have students go record videos, or I would have students like write a paragraph to demonstrate their understanding. Wasn't an assignment that I gave, but it was the way that they chose to show me. So there's a few different things that you can do for that, but the conference itself was the way we determined their quarter grade. As far as communication goes, as far as communicating, putting things in the online gradebook, it can look a lot of different ways. So the way that I do it, the way that works for me, is because I prefer to be standards based, I also use a proficiency rubric. My proficiency rubric has 4 levels to it. It has proficient at the highest. You can go through exceeding. That's fine. That's what might work better for you and your students. In my classroom, proficient is the highest. We have approaching the standard, developing at the standard, and beginning at the standard. Each one of those is assigned a certain number of points because I am in a classroom with a traditional grading scale. Any assignment that I give that is assessing a standard has a rubric that is proficiency based that goes along with that standard. I had to make all those rubrics. So yes, it's work. Um, but here's the benefit. Anytime I am assessing point of view, I use the point of view rubric. Anytime I am assessing use of text evidence, I use the text evidence rubric. I pull them out every single time I'm assessing that skill. So that's how I do this. Anytime I pick up an assessment and I'm reporting, I am using the proficiency rubric that I've created. ThemeSpark has been my saving grace for that. Those of you that are like, how do you create all those rubrics? I start at ThemeSpark, which is free and standards aligned and does it for you.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's great. And like you said, it is a lot of work, but it's really worth it in the end when you are creating something that works for you, that's going to consistently work for you and works for your students. And there's then a sense of consistency with your rubrics, because although they're different, I'm sure they have similarities since you've created them. And that's, I think, super important for the kids, is that consistency. I also know this came up in a conversation. The ambassadors were talking about the grid method and standards-based grading. And this had come up very similarly of, so how do we document all of this? And I think one thing that came up too, and I used to do this with my kids for their assessments, and I need to bring this back, but I really need to change the format and make it so that it fits. My kids used to have their own binder of tracking certain things. And I think that that's super helpful too, because it's not necessarily, if you create what you want it to look like, and yes, it takes obviously that work in the front end of you building it, but that also helps your kids continuously have a data binder with where they're at. Like you said, your kids make a portfolio, that also teaches your kids to really evaluate what's important and how to prove what they have learned. So I think that depending on, although I think it really could work for all age levels anyways, but I think depending on where you're at, that's a really great option, is creating something that works for you, works for your kids, but allows your kids to kind of take the ownership over that. Because again, if they take that ownership and they can show you what they've learned and they know how to prove it. I mean, that's literally why we're doing what we do. Is why we teach, so that they do that. So I think that
honestly, yes. And that's why I loved grading conferences. Like, of all the structures I have ever used, of anything, like beyond anything I've ever done. Hi, Liv. Hi. That is, grading conferences have been probably one of my absolute favorite things, because it's not just the idea like, okay, yeah, my students have taken more ownership because they're reflecting on their learning. They're able to talk about their progress. My students had ownership of their quarter grade, because we would sit down together and decide what it was going to be. Like, that was the coolest thing, was watching them be able to articulate to me, like, okay, and we created parameters ahead of time. Again, any of this I'll share with anybody that asks, because I think we should all be doing it forever. But we had parameters created ahead of time. So they had some like talking points, some things to refer to. It wasn't just a tell me what you should get, but they would come up to me with a portfolio that they had put together and walk me through. So the first learning goal that we talked about was writing arguments. Here was the essay that I wrote, but here's something else that I've also done to construct an argument. I think that the second one shows that I can do this better than my essay did. They would say things like that to me and talk me through everything that they had mastered in that given grading period. And then at the very end of the conference, I'd be like, okay, so based on everything you just showed me, what grade should you get for English? And we would talk about it. They'd be like, okay, well, I think I should get a B. I'd be like, okay, why? And like, we would talk about it. And it was awesome, because we would actually, like, a lot of the times, and I always get this question, like, well, what about the kid that says they deserve an A, but they haven't done anything? Okay, so first of all, that happened literally with one child. The entire time I did this, it happened with one kid. And that kid straight up looked at me and was like, I should get an A. And I was like, why? And he was like, because I really want one. And I was like, what did you do to show me that you really wanted one? And he was like, what? And I was like, well, if you really wanted it, what did you do to earn it? Like, how can you show me that you really, really wanted it? And he was like, what? It ended up being a conversation where I was like, okay, so if you really want something, do you think I should just give it to you? Like, if you just really want $1 million, should someone just give you $1 million, or do you think you're going to have to work for it? And he was like, okay. But it ended up being this conversation that was about more than just his grade in my class, but about like life, about effort, about behavior. And it allowed me to almost put like a behavior intervention in place. Like, how can I support you then to make sure that you really want this? How can I help you get it then? What can we do together to get you to that point? And it was awesome. So I will say that has happened with one kid ever. More often than not, they know where they are and they will tell you because you've done all this legwork to put together this portfolio of their growth and their learning. They can speak to that better than you might anticipate. And it's super powerful. The feedback that I got from my kids at the end of the year, I did an anonymous Google form and I was like, so tell me what you thought about grading conferences. All of my students, except one, said it was the best thing that they had done because they felt like they had control. They felt like they had a voice, that their grade was determined by them and not me. And that to me spoke volumes about any system that we put in place. If we want our students to truly have a voice and be a part of it, we have to make them a part of it and hear their voices. If we don't, we might be doing that in some areas, but if you truly want your kids to feel like they have a stake in your class, that was the best way I've ever done it. And the conversations that I had with those kids, amazing. I've never heard 12-year-olds talk like that about their learning.
That's amazing. Like, that to me is what we should all be aiming for in our classrooms. Because how does it get better than that? And I love that you say your kids knew where they were at. But I also feel like a huge part of that is because they understood what their grade represented.
Yes.
And how many times do they not understand that? Like, or actually, I'm going to change the way I said that. Because I shouldn't say they don't understand that. That does not give them enough credit for this. They fully understand because they know whose class, they'll straight up tell you whose class is just effort, whose class they have to, like, they know. I literally just had a kid tell me this the other day. They were like, well, I'm talking about a class on Zoom. Well, I don't do anything for that class, but I mean, I still have an A. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, I know that's not how it works in here. And I was like, that was his immediate response to me. I know that's not how it works in here. I was like, yeah, you better know that's not how it works in here. But again, it's because they understood what the grade meant. They knew what their learning should look like. And if you, again, I don't know of, I mean, other than standards-based grading, but you're still giving a grade in a sense for that because you're still assessing their mastery. But I don't know of a school district anywhere that has like nothing and has done away with grades completely. Like that's just not where we're at. So working within the system that we have, and it changes district to district, but working with what we have, it is completely possible to do things and change the way that grading looks and change what kids are doing and how they're seeing grading. It is absolutely like everything you just talked about, like that is it. That to me is like, that's where I want my kids to be. And again, no classroom is perfect. And I'm miles from where I want to be. But I think that like everything that you have said, just like hearing your kids say that, that's where we want to end up. That's where we want our kids to be, taking that ownership and truly proving and showing you what they've learned and being able to talk about that and communicate that to you. That's huge.
It was. And it was a surprisingly easy sell to families once I explained it in terms of they're going to have a job in the future. And at that job, they're going to be expected to go through performance reviews with their boss. And in that performance review, they're going to have to explain what they've accomplished, what they can do, and why or why not, like why they deserve a raise and don't deserve to be fired. So, and I know like school is not a job. It's absolutely not. Kids don't get paid to be there. It's not a job, but it is a life skill to be able to advocate for yourself and to be able to talk about the skills that you've acquired and the work that you've done. And that's really one of the big pieces that they were able to do. And I truly believe it shifted the focus in my classroom away from how many points is this worth? How much am I going to get for doing this? To, is this going to benefit my learning? Is this going to be something that I can practice? Is this going to be a skill that I'm going to have to show that I know later? And that shift right there is taking your students from transactional learning to learning that really focuses on growth and progress, which is what we want to do. So
I love the, like, I never get the question, how many points is this worth? And that is my favorite thing that I no longer hear anymore.
Love that.
It's the best thing ever. That has been like, I'm like, gosh, I never hear this anymore. This is great. I love it.
So good.
But it takes time. It takes time. Do I start school every year and like hear that for a little bit? I mean, yeah, my kids are coming from a classroom where that's the norm. And I mean, my kids have multiple teachers, and as do a lot of people. So, you know, it's a norm that they're used to. So it takes some time for them to get used to the change, but trust me, they will get used to it and they will excel. They will do wonderfully. I might be the only classroom that does it my way, and that doesn't affect them in other classes. But again, I had the comment, I know that's not how it works in here. Yeah, they know how it works for everyone, but they know what they know what they're learning and why they're learning it. And I also think too, because I get this question a lot, you know, with just whether it's with the grid or with assessments and things, you know, how it's the same thing. How are parents okay with it? Well, here's the thing. When I tell the parents that my students can work through all of their learning activities and make as many mistakes as they want and correct it as many times as they want, and then they can take the assessment. And if they would like to learn more and then take the assessment again, they can. I've never had a parent say, no, please don't do that with my child. Because it's a communication. Like, it's just the communication. And you just have to communicate it. And it's not easy, and it's easier to shy away from that. Trust me, been there, done that. It's so much easier not to do it, but it's so worth it to do it. So worth it.
Yes. Get out there, do the work, folks. We're here to support you. I will literally send you every single thing that I have, and I will talk to you about it whenever you want.
I'm not ready if y'all are going to start dropping your emails there. I've got the one, but you got to
DM me, Twitter, Instagram, right here. I'll send it all to you. Legit, y'all. It's right there.
All right. So Katelynn and I have been chatting for a little over an hour, and it's been incredible. I mean, in case you missed the beginning, it was really just us catching up. So if you want to know more about our lives, you can go back and watch that too. And, you know, and then we talked about Teacher Appreciation Week and how amazing it's going to be. And then we've been talking about grading for quite some time because Katelynn just drops all the amazing knowledge, and I just love listening to her. So it's been incredible. Katelynn, if somebody is watching this and they want to make a change within the last month of school, what is something small that they can do to get started? That, again, because it doesn't have to be big things overnight, and it doesn't have to be this massive growth right away. So what's something that they can do, you know, tomorrow, this week, this month, even over the summer to prep for next year?
Okay, so a couple small things that I have for you, just a few, because they all go together. Don't worry. Number one, read some research on grading. Really start to develop your philosophy and make sure it's grounded in research that's out there. That is one of the biggest things that I can say. You can do that right now, and that will help you solidify what you believe and how you might do it. If you need recommendations, please DM me. It's right here. It's right there. Yeah, I'll send you like a whole folder full. The second thing that you can do, this is a super simple switch that I made. It was one of the first things that I did in my classroom, and it had way bigger impact than I thought it was going to. put learning goals at the top of all of your assessments, any learning activity that you give to students, whether it be a homework assignment, whether it be an activity that's formative, whether it be something you're using summatively, whatever it might be, learning goals on the top of them, put them in kid-friendly language. I like to use I can statements, so it's very action-oriented. I put them on everything. This allows you to see everybody, and this allows your students, allows your students to see every single assignment that goes through and how they're all related and how the learning targets are related, so they can see their progress over time. Super simple thing that you can start doing right away. If you do it on every assignment that you give, don't do that all at once. If you do it on each assignment that you give, then you are able to kind of just do it over time. And as you give them, once you've gotten through the whole year, all of them will have your learning target on it. Finally, don't be afraid to have the conversations. Hang out with Dave and then we'll chat you through it, because having those conversations is really the important work that needs to be done. So don't shy away from them. They might be a little uncomfortable, but once you've developed your philosophy and you feel comfortable talking about it, dive in.
Love it. So many good things, so many good places to start, and so many good things that you can do soon. I do need to say this, Katelynn, because I started reading this while you were, and I got through the first line and was like, oh no. So this is covering both of us up right now, by the way, but that's okay. So apparently our stream is named wrong. Our stream should be called Awesome Teach Better Team, because we're super awesome and we don't need lightsabers because we're already slaying it. And I agree, Katelynn, you like literally slay it every day for your kids. So I am loving it, and Katelynn is just dying right now. This is like
slay.
We're gonna try to rope it back in real quick. So yeah, actually there's a lot of people that use SMART and kind of go through the steps of the specific, realistic, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And I think that like that is there, like there's a lot of keys to that are important and are really good to think about when you are, trying to set goals and trying to, figure out what it is that you're trying to grade and what it is that your students are attempting to learn and master. Thanks, Andrea. So we have so many good things before we go. We have so many good things happening this week. So we are obviously live kicking off I almost said Teach Better Week. Cut us off. Teacher Appreciation Week with the Teach Better team. There we go. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. And they let us kick it off. And I feel like Katelynn just set the bar real high. So, good luck for the rest of the week. But join us every single day this week and weekend. This is also happening. And it is happening at 5 p.m. Central, which is 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific time every single day. We also have our Teach Better chat, formerly Mastery chat, happening this Thursday night, which is 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And so again, we're making that shift from Mastery chat to Teach Better chat. So use both hashtags. And then I'm going to cry on this one, but it's going to be okay, everyone. We'll get through it together. The very last focus on the focus is not this Wednesday, because, we've just got so many things going on. It's next Wednesday, and it is with, obviously, the two amazing Dave and Katelynn show, because they're just incredible together. And it is a Q&A. They've got some amazing special guests coming, so you really don't want to miss it. Bring your questions. Bring them all. And here's the best part. It's not happening until next Wednesday. So if you have missed any of the focus on the focus, which if you have, you really need to go back and watch it. Go back and watch them. They are on YouTube. So you can search the Teach Better team. You can find every live we ever do is recorded and gets added into YouTube. So it'll be there forever. But go ahead and catch those before, so that you can bring your questions to the Q&A, because it is going to be amazing. I already know it. And I think that's the most of everything that we have going on. And I really don't know this. I don't know what time it is UK time.
Me neither.
I could help you there. I will get better at that. I have my Pacific, Central, and Eastern down, and I know I need
I
to
was impressed.
rest. Thank you.
I was impressed.
I've done that a lot. I don't know UK time. But you are awesome. Go appreciate yourself, be proud of yourself, and go take some time for yourself. Katelynn, thank you so much for joining me. This was so much fun, and we just need to do this more often because
love you all. You're the
I
best.
love it, and it's my favorite thing ever. I love going live with you.
Back at you, friend.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Have an absolutely phenomenal rest of your night. Have a phenomenal week, and go be proud of yourself. Enjoy yourself.
You got it. We appreciate you.